This is Russ with the Search for Spirits team out of Minnesota here. I had an interesting situation occur to me the other day that I just felt it was necessary to maybe provide this information to others to see if they could gather some usefulness from the information. On Saturday night, I was at a birthday party out in Sauk Centre, Minnesota. And probably around 10:15, 10:30 at night, I was driving through town on my way home, and I was passing by the Palmer House. A lot of people are familiar with the Palmer House and its history of having paranormal activity. And so when I drive by there, being a paranormal investigator, I'm always kind of glancing over, whatever. But I don't think real deep into it. I just drive by, and I have investigated there a few times. As a matter of fact, one of the last times I was there investigating, the week after I investigated there, I received a good half a dozen phone calls on my cell phone from the Palmer House. And when I called back and I said, somebody's been trying to get a hold of me. And nope, they asked everybody, and nobody had been trying to call me. So here I had proof on my phone that I had numerous calls that had come in from the Palmer House. Is it spirits trying to contact me? Because I'm a paranormal investigator, because I've seen some really crazy stuff over the years, I would say yes to that. But you can all decide what your thoughts are on that. But the bottom line is, I'm driving by this place, the Palmer House, Sauk Centre, Minnesota. In my car, I'm slowing down for the stoplights. They turned green, but just at that point where I just kind of paused and I'm about to step on the gas, all of a sudden I get this strange kind of a weird breath in, a kind of cough, and like, what was that, That was weird, came unexpected. But I drove down the road and everything's fine for a couple blocks, but all of a sudden I start getting these symptoms. And when I say symptoms, I'm talking about symptoms that I normally get when I feel a attachment from somebody that's no longer living. And for me, it's kind of an electrical energy, kind of a fingers in my hair type feeling. I get kind of a slight dizziness, maybe a little bit of blurred vision. I was getting some chest, not pains, but some strange feelings in my chest. And all those, for me, were signaling that it was very possible that as I passed the Palmer House, something got in the car, got into my energy. That's an unusual thing. I haven't had that happen before on a drive-by, but I believe that's what happened. I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. So I'm driving down the highway. I got these feelings. Eventually, I get into St. Joe. I already decided. I get to St. Joe. I'm going to pull over in a parking lot, and I'm going to try to cross over whatever may have come in and attached to me. And so I pull over, parking lot. I stop. I kind of do this crossover. I ask Archangel Michael to come, cut the ties, and let's release. Let's send whoever it was to the light. If they came after me that hard, they came for a reason, and it was probably to be crossed over, which has been happening a lot lately. And so I did the crossover, but during the crossover, as I'm closing in on the end and the light's rising, I get this feeling, this kind of intense, kind of gripping feeling where something's pulling up, and it's like whatever was lifting up into the light was still gripping my head or something. It was just kind of a stiff, and all of a sudden it slowly released, and I'm like, geez, I never had that happen before. That was something different. So, but it went all done. All of a sudden, I was really hungry for some protein. So I grabbed a quick cheeseburger at McDonald's. I know that don't sound good to everybody, but when you go through a paranormal experience, a lot of times you're going to be hungry for protein. You're going to get very thirsty for water, and that's part of the process. But another story. So anyway, I drive home. Boom, crawl into bed. It's late. I got to work the next morning, and I have a little trouble falling asleep, but I get sleep. And then I commenced into some very defined dreams. The first dream was about a large, I would say, like a government building from the 1800s. It was a very large building, 2-3 stories high. You went up a bunch of steps, probably about 20 steps. You went inside a door. There's a little plateau there, and then it went down a bunch of steps and a big hallway all the way down the middle, like 40-50 feet across, with big rooms on each side. Not familiar with the building whatsoever, but I walk up the steps. I'm standing at the top of the steps, and down in the big hallway there's a man standing. Nothing unusual about him. A dark suit, it looks nice. The guy's down there, and I'm watching him for a while, and he's kind of looking at me, but then he turns and starts walking away, and as he walks away, he starts to fade away. And all of a sudden, he's gone. And I'm like, oh, okay. Obviously, we have a ghost here that maybe he's trying to lead me somewhere. I'm not sure. So I go down there, and I walk the path that he walked, and then I don't see anything, so I turn around, and here he was kind of like back at the starting point, and here he was coming at me again, and then he disappeared right before he got to me. And that was kind of the end of that dream. I didn't really pull much more out of that, but there was a dream that immediately followed based on the Civil War, and it was about some Yankee cavalry that were on the north side of a river. They were on one of the border states. They were on the north side. I don't know, maybe a company's worth. And they were going around and collecting information on either eligible soldiers or soldiers that would soon be eligible to sign up for the war. And so they were going around to house, collecting names, age, size, gathering up a roster. And in the meantime, they were planning the next day to go across the river, across the bridge, and do the south side of the river and do the same thing, collect up any names of eligible or soon to be eligible or could be soldiers. And so they were doing this, and throughout this part, I kept getting visions of somebody had drowned in a river and was floating down the river. And the guy, I don't know if he was kind of wrapped in a fabric type. He was kind of wrapped up in something, in some kind of fabric, some kind of a cloth. But also during this part, I kept receiving the name Tatanka. That was a name that kept coming to me. And granted, like I say, this is all kind of, I assume I was sleeping. It was a vision while I was asleep. And, but anyway, on the other side of the river, the folks on that side were more sympathetic to the south, and they were on the south side of the river, and they knew that the Yankees were going to be coming over the next day. But the general, or whoever of the Yankees, he talked with some of his soldiers, and they thought that it would be all right, that they would be able to talk to them, just talk to those who were interested, and get some more names from the south side of the river. And so they planned to go there the next day. So next day in the morning they get up and they get the horses ready and they ride over to the bridge. And during the night, some of the Southern sympathizers had completely barricaded the bridge so they couldn't cross. Okay, so in this part of the process, I'm receiving another name, and the name is going over and over in my mind, and the name is Colonel Red. Colonel Red. Colonel Red is a friend of many people in that area. He's somebody that they trust, and it's just a name that keeps coming up from kind of the south side of the river, and I'm not sure how that played a role in anything, but at the time I'm like, okay, so they come up the rivers, they can't cross the river, and I don't know what time, it's in the middle of the night, and suddenly my cat just goes crazy and wakes me up. I don't know what her issue was, but all of a sudden she goes crazy. I wake up from the dream, and that's the end of it, and I never re-enter it. So not that night or any other night after. But the next day I wake up and I'm like, okay, well, I had the experience of feeling like I had an attachment, and it was followed by a very informational dream. So I get online the next day, and I look up Tatanka, and Tatanka obviously is known for a few things, but buffalo or bull. Definition by the Lakota was he who owns us, and it also was part of the name of the Lakota holy man and chief Sitting Bull. It was Tatanka Iotake, and I apologize if I messed up that name by any means. I'm just going with the information I can receive that I researched in the pronunciation, etc. Several times Tatanka came out as a name, a significant name during this dream. So I'm trying to relate how that fits in. I'm not positive. But the second name was Colonel Red. And so I typed that in, internet, boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, okay. Right away it pops up. There's a guy whose name is Colonel Russell Reeder Jr. And his nickname was Red. Same name as me, Russell. Nickname was Colonel Red. Highly decorated commander who led troops ashore at Utah Beach on D-Day. Matter of fact, his unit was one of the ones that got the farthest inland. They really put up quite a battle, and he was decorated. In the fifth day of the battle, fifth day over, he lost his left leg to a German 88 millimeter round. So here's a guy that's highly decorated. Interesting just to read about him, right? But the second part that I find out about this Colonel Red is that he went on to write several books on military history. And several of those books were on the Civil War. So he was a Civil War historian who was born in Leavenworth County, Kansas, and died in Fairfax County, Virginia. So kind of that possible connection to the Civil War and the locations. I may be stretching it a bit by assuming that these two names are connected to anything in that dream. Specifically, are they real? Is there a connection? Well, for me as an investigator and somebody that's been involved in the supernatural for a long time, I have a feeling that the person who I crossed over Saturday night may have been Colonel Red. Like I say, Everybody takes this with a grain of salt. They take paranormal for what they will. I'm not here to say anything one way for sure or not, but I helped somebody cross over that night. I had visions. I had names given to me during the visions while I was asleep. And I put the pieces together, and I think there's a chance that Colonel Red or somebody associated with Colonel Red provided me with that information while I was sleeping, and they were crossed over. Let me know if you have any additional thoughts on this. Maybe you have additional information. Maybe you've had similar dreams. Maybe you knew him personally. Maybe you've had dreams about Tatanka, or dreams that have been about the Civil War. I mean, any of the subjects, if you've got something to add, please add it in the comments. I also would ask that you, if you're interested in these types of articles that I put on here, the investigations as well as the articles, please subscribe, like, share. I'd appreciate it. And till next time, this is Russ with the Search for Spirits Paranormal Investigation Team.